with you. And now I'd like to start with Becky Ramsey from John Hopkins Center, who will share some of your ideas with us. So thanks very much.
Thanks. All right. Thank you. It's nice to be here, and thank you for staying for the second session. I know everybody's probably tired. My name is Becky Ramsey. I work with the Center for a Livable Future, which is part of Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. At the center, we work with the food system and sustainability, looking at a public health perspective. We work with education, research, policy, and other communication. We also work a lot with food policies and working with food policy councils. Today I'm not going to talk as much about our work with Food Policy Council because I'm not the expert and my colleagues are really the best ones, but I'm happy to connect you with them. They work a lot with Baltimore City and have done some really good work coordinating the work of food policy councils. I'm going to talk specifically about Meatless Monday and just one little tool or one little program that you can integrate into different levels of policy and the work that you do in cities and municipalities. And then I'm also going to introduce you to some of our Meatless Monday team here in Israel, and they can share a little bit about what they do. So just another way to look at it as you interact with your communities and the people you work with. So Meatless Monday has a history. Actually, 100 years ago, during World War I in the United States, the government called for a meatless day because they wanted to save resources for troops. And that was kind of the first time that was really looked at as more of this sacrifice for the good of the nation. 100 years later, not quite 100 years later, it just was 100 years, there's a man named Sid Lerner who was a big had spent his career doing marketing and really did a lot of commercials and just a really good career on that. And this was his, at the end of his career, he wanted to do some other nonprofit work, and he was thinking, our center was looking at food production and some of the problems with animal production. And he said, what are we doing about consumption? And let's work together to look at consumption. He said, I remember this campaign back in World War I that's been used several times. And at that time, our Surgeon General was calling for 15% reduction in saturated fat. Knowing that saturated fat, most of that comes from animal products, he said, 15% one day a week, 15%. Hey, let's make this a campaign. So that campaign was started, and our center from the very beginning has been the science advisors. We are not running the campaign, but we work very closely with them, helping with evaluation and making it evidence-based, backing it up with science and research. So it started as a health campaign. It's now moved as with 1 day a week, go without meat, just one very simple message. And now has really, as evidence has grown and has evolved, really has brought in the message of the environment and the climate, that this is also important, an important message about meat reduction. So really that campaign is now encompassing many different messages. And that's one of one of the benefits and the strengths of this campaign is it has these different messages you can address. So, we know that red meat, this is kind of some of the basis of this. We know that red meat and processed meat especially is linked to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and higher mortality. We know that plant-based diets are associated with healthier weights and lower blood pressure and cancer rates. We know that livestock has a disproportionate draw on environmental resources in terms of land, water, energy, and other inputs. And we know that animal source foods produce more greenhouse gases. Go ahead. So if you look, just for example, if you look at the greenhouse gas emissions that come from human activities, this big circle, you can see livestock takes about, that's the circle that's livestock's contribution. Most of it comes from enteric fermentation, but also from feed crops, energy use, and all those. That's about 7.1 gigatons. If you click again, this is what comes from the transport industry globally. It's actually less than the livestock industry. So, and then one more click. 2 more clicks. There you go. This is the agriculture. The emissions that come from the agriculture sector. So larger, really, than the transport energy. So as we're talking about having to meet some of the climate goals, we cannot meet the climate goals with only talking about transportation and energy, those main sectors that we talk about. We also need to talk about food. We need to talk about the production and also the consumption of food. And our food systems, as you know, are changing. We are moving from more informal, traditional to more modern food system, requiring more inputs, having more middlemen, and changing the type of food that we're eating, more food, processed foods, and which is impacting the health of the consumers as well as the environment. And we know that cities must address these health and sustainability issues. And I'm preaching to the choir here. There's so many issues that cities have to address within their own, and municipalities within their own borders: farmland loss, water problems, climate change problems, changing diets, and also health-related diseases. And so we really see Meatless Monday as a tool for all of these things. And if you look at Meatless Monday really does address health, environment, climate, animal welfare, food safety, and equity as well. But we don't see it as a perfect answer. It's an entry point. But what is important about it, or valuable about it, is it's not attached to a specific agenda. It's not a vegan agenda. But it's really encompassing so many things. It also attracts those who've not been exposed to various issues. We find that Meatless Monday is something simple. Maybe I'll think about it for health, and I'm like, oh wait, what about the environment or the climate? So it's really bringing in all these things into one conversation where people may not have the awareness of that yet. It allows for multiple sectors. It can have, and we really see it's not only, we're dealing with issues of overnutrition and undernutrition. We're dealing with health issues of chronic diseases and hunger issues. But Meatless Monday really can talk to that crowd that needs to address the meat reduction, but while keeping in mind the other. So this deals with the nuance much better, right? We know that people individually, people do reduce meat in a very different way. They don't reduce meat like by taking meat out. They make smaller incremental changes. When you look at policy, in your food policy, there's many levels of policy. You can click one more time. Many levels of policy, but if you look at the local and institutional, there's a lot more, it's more agile. You can make a lot more decisions, do a lot more programs in these smaller levels of policy. So sectors where Meatless Monday has worked before, we've seen it, is in procurement and food policies, procurement and dietary guidelines. You can use it in work groups or food policy councils. In institutions and healthcare, when they can have Meatless Monday they can talk about meatless or meat reduction, and in the food service having a much broader reach individually. Retails and restaurants have promoted it. Workplace health among individual citizens. It has been very great. Talking about media earlier, social media is a great way to talk about it, and even sustainability offices have taken up that message. Food policies work in a lot of different areas, but in the types of policies you can do. But really, what we've seen the best is that climate-friendly procurement, which I think Chloe's going to talk about, and other resolutions like proclamations, like Meatless Monday Proclamation, where it supports other retailers and and businesses who might be wanting to do more green business, such as that. Okay, let's skip this one. So actually go back to that one. Sorry, we'll spin. So food policies, if you have a food policy council or work groups in your communities, it's a great way. They're working on a lot of these same issues. They're working on healthy food access and food procurement, anti-hunger, all those issues that really resonate in the same way. So there's things that Meatless Monday has been done. Policy has been implemented with Meatless Monday in other ways. And I go ahead and skip that one. Sorry. So if you're interested in adopting Meatless Monday or just looking more into it, here's some ideas. Government offices can adopt Meatless Monday. You can sign an official Meatless Monday proclamation again. Encouraging all your schools, your institution, your companies, your hospitals to implement Meatless Monday. I know that New York City is here, and they were very happy that New York City schools are implementing Meatless Monday in some of their schools as well. Chefs and restaurants and the social media. Go ahead. Meatless Mondays, the campaign, we work with them. They have some kits. If you go on their meatlessmonday.com, they have a kit for mayors and city officials. And we also have a global Meatless Monday initiative where we're trying to connect the different organizations around and individuals around the world that are doing Meatless Monday into communities of practice and just really helping them share in resources together. So that's all really. I want to keep this short so that my colleagues have a chance to share a little bit about what's going on in Israel. But please contact me. There's my contact here if you have more questions about that. So.
Thanks, Becky. Hello, everyone. So I hope all the Israelis heard about here at Meatless Monday Israel. I'm not going to talk about Meatless Monday and just say a few words about what we're doing here. We're actually doing a lot of wonderful things, like public awareness, which we're working on very hard, like corporate engagement. We recruit organizations and hospitals and academic institutions to adopt the initiative. But since this is what's interesting in the local authorities, I'll tell you what we're doing about it here in Israel. There are guidelines that the Education Ministry and the Health Ministry is promoting, and it's for the local authorities to have one-day plant-based meals for children at school. Here in Israel, it's about 500,000, like 500,000 meals every day given to children, and we are making sure that the local authorities are carrying this out, that they know the guidelines. I can tell you it's very problematic, it's very complicated. Not all of them know about these guidelines, and if they do, we counter many